Hello and welcome, Megan, to the Dental Hygiene Basics podcast. I'm super excited to have you on and to share your RDH origin story. So just tell me a little bit how you got interested in dental hygiene and then kind of what brought you to this point that you're at now.
Thank you for having me. So my story goes as follows, but I actually went straight from high school to hygiene school. I spent a lot of time growing up in the dental office because I always had cavities. So I was just very comfortable there, and the hygienist there, like I was looking for some type of a career job, and the hygienist there really sold me on it. They're like, it's very flexible. They're like, if you want a family someday, it's really good for that. The money's good. They're like, it's something you should consider. And from then on, I was all in. So I went to the University of New Haven and I graduated with my bachelor's degree in 2021. And while I was there doing my associate's bachelor's degree, I did an internship underneath one of my clinical instructors, and I helped with the grade below me, and I gave like the skills assessments with her. It was really a lot of fun for me. And in those moments, that's kind of when I realized that I wanted to further my education and get a master's degree. And I was like, I could do the teaching thing. I really enjoyed it in the clinical setting. So I was like, I would like to do it in the classroom setting too. So I decided that I wanted to get my master's degree. And I had been looking at programs, and I decided on the Massachusetts College of Pharmacy and Health Sciences because it just sounded like they had a really good structures master's program. And so I went there, but you had to have 2 years of experience, I believe, to be able to apply to the graduate program there, unless you went there for undergraduate, which I did not. So I had to wait the 2 years, have my real world experience, and then I could apply there. And so I'm currently doing that. It's a 2-year program, so I will actually be done next month. And I'm very excited to be done with school. And I actually just received a job offer from Middlesex College to be an instructor in a radiology course there in the fall. So I'm very excited to start this.
Love that. Yes, I know. I'm so excited for your new chapter too, especially in education. It's obviously a
Yeah.
passion of mine. As a former, I call myself, I was previously in formal education. Now I do more informal on the entrepreneurship side, but that's incredible. So excited for you to join the Middlesex team. One of our favorite RDHs, Kimberly Augustus, she works there. She was actually on the podcast right when we first started the podcast. So
Oh, that's
gonna love
funny.
her. Yeah, she's incredible. And that's so exciting. I want to kind of step back a little bit. First question I have, you're in your master's. Is it a
Mhm.
master's in dental hygiene? Is that what you will graduate with?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. And so I want to kind of jump back because you mentioned you pretty much started dental hygiene school right out of high school. So tell me a little bit
Yeah.
about that timeline and how that worked.
Yeah, so I didn't even realize that a lot of people actually went back to hygiene school after already getting a degree. I feel very fortunate that that's kind of what I wanted to do right away. And in my school, there were a lot of other girls. I don't even think we had any boys in our class, actually. I think all the other girls in my class were just like me, fresh out of high school. So I really wasn't exposed to like any moms or any family like getting their degree. It was just girls my age. And I had no idea. I actually did like an internship at Middlesex this past spring, and it was a lot of moms and like all these working people. So I feel very fortunate that I was in the position to be able to do it so young and get it over with.
Yeah, absolutely. So what dental hygiene school did you go to for your undergrad?
I went to the University of New Haven, and I did take some college credits in high school. And it really did help me in college because the University of New Haven is a 4-year, it doesn't have to be a 4-year program. It's actually, if you want to get your associates, a 3-year program. So the first year is a lot of the like the basic courses like biology, history, English. There were like 2 intro to dental hygiene courses, but you really didn't dive into that hygiene world yet. It was just like, oh, like this is tooth number 1, and this is the mesial side, and this is the distal side. It was just very introduction courses. And so that was the first year. And then the second year was diving into the clinical stuff. So, like getting to know your instruments. And then the second half of that year is when we actually started seeing patients. And then the third year, that's when we started doing like rotations and stuff. And then that's when we got our associate's degree. And then if you wanted to, you could get your bachelor's degree. You didn't have to, though. But the bachelor's degree was all online and it was 1 full year. So since I took those courses in high school, I was actually able to graduate a semester early and I didn't have to spend an extra semester on school. I was actually able to work part time doing hygiene while I got my bachelor's degree. So that was really nice.
Yeah, that's incredible. This is another model that is new to me, but I've heard kind of similar stories. I think West Virginia does something similar. Then
Interesting.
NYU, I think, does something kind of similar too. A lot of times the prereqs happen before that, and it's kind of two
Yes.
separate situations. So I really like these programs where it's all combined and that education in your early first year, you're already getting exposure to tooth numbers and things like
Hmm.
that. And so if you know that that's a passion for you, I think it's such a great way to do that because I knew I wanted to go into dentistry. And I remember sitting in my biology class and we got like 5 minutes on the tooth and that was it. And all they show you is enamel, cementum, dentin. That was it. So I really think that that's very important to have these kind of programs where you
Hmm.
can grow into the program. So when you were applying to University of New Haven, do you apply straight into the dental hygiene program or do you apply to the college? How does that process work? I guess. Does that question make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I applied straight into the hygiene program.
Okay, gotcha. And so I know this is like kind of weird, but so what if you get in, but then I guess at some point, if you decide you don't want to do that anymore, what happens then?
You could choose. So that actually happened to a lot of girls in my program. So we started out with a big class. I want to say around like 40 to 50 girls. Like I said, no boys. There were boys above and below me. So there were boys in the school, just not in my specific class. But we started out with like 40 to 50 people. And a lot of people actually dropped it in, I would say a lot of people dropped in the first year because you get that exposure to the dental hygiene courses. And I think that's when they decided, like, you know what, this course load, this idea of teeth is not for me. So a lot of people dropped off. And then, as we got further into it, less and less people would drop off. I think, as you get further into it, I don't really think it's a choice that they dropped off. I think it was more of like academic stuff. But if you decided that this wasn't for you, then you could go on and choose another major. Like you just reroute your college career. I had a lot of friends do it. There was a girl who, maybe in the third year, she decided it wasn't for her and she went back to do teaching
Wow.
or like early childhood education, not for dental hygiene.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's kind of what I was trying to wrap my brain around because I'm thinking you start out on this college track, you apply,
Yeah.
you get into dental hygiene. So I was like, how do you navigate that? I assume you're never stuck anywhere, right? But,
No,
and the thing too is I know you're getting other college credits. So it's not like those years
exactly.
were a waste if you decide that's
Right.
not for you. But I love that structure because, like I said, if you think it is for you, you get in
Yeah.
there and you get that exposure early. So that's incredible. Okay.
Yeah.
So you were how old when you started dental hygiene school?
Oh, I was like 18. I was so young.
That's incredible, and then when you graduate, how old will you be, or how old are you now?
I was 22 when I got my bachelor's degree, and I am 26 and I'll be graduating with my master's.
Yeah, that's outstanding. Congratulations, I'm so excited for
Thank
you, and
you.
yeah, that's how we connected because you reached out to me on social media, you were working on your
Yeah.
master's, a thesis, a capstone, what is it that you're working on?
A thesis.
Okay, yeah, tell me a little bit about your thesis.
Oh goodness. I'm not gonna lie to you. I didn't look into graduate school too much before I started applying. I was just kind of like, okay, I want to teach. This is what I want to do. I'm gonna go into it. And there's many different paths that you can take to teach in a classroom. So I remember asking one of my professors, like, hey, like you can get a healthcare administration degree, you can get a public health degree, you can get an adult education degree. You can get a dental hygiene degree. Like, what do you think is best? And I think she gave me no good answer. Like, it was nothing useful that I took from that conversation. So I was like, well, I guess I'll just get it in dental hygiene. Like, that makes sense. I want to go into, teaching in dental hygiene. So I was like, I'll do that. So I think of my dental hygiene degree as like two columns. So, like, the first column being teaching classes. So I'm learning how to educate adults and how people learn, and I think that's really fun. That's really what I want to do. And then the other section of it is the research aspect of it. So that's where my thesis comes into play. And it's very difficult. And I think looking back on that decision to get the degree in dental hygiene, I don't necessarily know if I would, not because I'm not enjoying it, but because I really wanted to focus on that adult education aspect rather than the research. However, I will say that I like knowing all the stuff that I know now about research. So I can like take any research article now and I can pick it apart and say, you know what, this is a really good research article. Like you should use this to stand by what you say. Or I could say, no, this is a really bad one. Like just because it says the sky is blue doesn't mean the sky is actually blue. So it's a rigorous course, I will say, but it's good information to know. Like I really appreciate it. And so my research is on like dental hygiene students treating children and youth with special healthcare needs. So when I came out of hygiene school, my first job was in a pediatric dental office. And let me tell you, I did not go seeking that route. I originally went to hygiene school and I was like, yes, I'm going to work in a pediatric dental office when I'm done. And then I went through hygiene school and I saw all the things that you had to do. I was like, I can't do this on a kid. I was like, they don't sit still. They're not going to turn their head to the right or the left for me if I ask. I'm like, I can't sit in like a 9 o'clock position with them. There's no way. And so I was like, that's it. I'm just going to do adults. And then, funny enough, through a friend of a friend, I met a dentist who was a pediatric dentist. And she's like, yeah, she's like, I know you don't have your hygiene license yet and you're waiting for it, but come and work for me. Just get experience like in the office. And I'm like, oh, I don't know. And she was very persistent. So I was like, oh, okay. And I didn't realize that a lot of pediatric dentistry is children with special needs. And I went to school during COVID. So I feel like I didn't get to see as many children as I maybe normally would have. So I didn't feel prepared to treat number one, children, and then number two, children with special needs. So that's where I really wanted to focus my research because you really need to like your research when you're doing it for like 2 years. So I wanted to get a feel on how other students felt, if they were prepared or not to treat children and youth with special healthcare needs. And I'm actually finding that a lot of students are prepared, or at least they say they're prepared. You know, that's what they report. But I think if they were in that situation, I don't know how it would go. But at least that's what they're saying.
Yeah. And I think it is something that's growing. I know some schools do
Ah,
rotations through special needs clinics and things like
hmm.
that. So I do hope that with, as time goes on, more exposure, and there's nothing wrong with your research showing that, hey, students
Yeah.
feel more confident than maybe we felt, in years past with that kind of
Yes.
kind of
That
thing.
was
So
definitely unexpected for me. I really thought it was going to show the opposite because I guess that's how I felt. So I was like, oh, a lot of people must feel this way. But you know what? Looking into it and seeing that a lot of schools are actually doing rotations at schools for children with disabilities, I'm like, that's amazing. You know, like children with disabilities, there's so many medical advancements now that are making these children live longer, give them better quality of life. So they deserve to have that quality of oral healthcare providers too.
yeah, absolutely. And the thing I'm thinking about is if you're a student listening to this, maybe you're starting your program or you're interested in possibly working with children with special needs. That's a good question to ask during the interview process, or, hey, what
Yeah,
opportunities do you have? What rotations, what externships, what's available to me? Because some schools do have that, but some schools don't. I've
right.
also worked in another school that did not allow externships or rotations, at all. And yeah, and so the only exposure you got was what came through the clinic. And while they treated a ton of patients at that school, which was great. They got a lot of experience. In that case, you might step out and feel like you don't have that preparation, but then you have to realize that there are still avenues to go out and find learning, whether that's CE courses, things like that. So I want to reflect a little bit about what you said on, your master's program and choosing a master's program. Usually here we're talking about students getting into dental hygiene school, but I think it's
Mhm.
really important to have that conversation about what does life look like? What are your career goals?
Yes.
And it's something that I think starts developing in dental hygiene school. I felt the same as you. It was like I was in school working with my professors. I saw the things they were doing and I thought I want to be in education. And so for me, I knew I wanted my master's. I was kind of like you, like hit the ground running. What do I need to do to start my master's program? And I did my master's in aging and dementia studies, which is totally
Oh, okay.
obscure. Yeah. And in my mind, I really thought one day I'd own a mobile clinic and I'd be out in the rural population with aging adults. That's kind of what I thought. And funny enough, I love pediatrics too. I always say I like to work on either end of the age scale. Like I either want to work with children or I want to work with elderly or the aging population. So anyway, so that was kind of a special interest to me. I had two grandparents with dementia. So anyways, I went down that path, but knowing I wanted to teach and the school that I ultimately intended to teach at, which was my alma mater, had in their master's program aging classes and classes about dementia care and things like that. So to me, it kind of all linked up and made sense.
Yeah.
But, like you said, you're like, when I kind of got on the road and started thinking about it, and me looking back thinking, what do I maybe wish I would have done my master's
Mhm.
in? I agree. I think adult education
Yeah.
because I love working with students and working with adults is
Yeah.
and how to create a course and learning objectives and all the things that you don't learn in regular dental hygiene school. But if you think you want
Right.
to go into the profession of education, there are methodologies, that
Mhm.
people have developed and created over the years and that can make your life a lot easier. So I think that's a good point. But I also agree 100%. Knowing how to understand research, especially in this day and age where there's so much misinformation that comes out,
Mhm.
especially on social media, it's a really good benefit to have that skill. And with the research component, I think it can advance your career knowing that. So, what do you think?
Oh,
Like,
absolutely.
have you started kind of thinking of career aspirations, even maybe outside of traditional education?
Sometimes think about if I could go further into the research aspect of it. But I'm not sure how that would look like or like what that would look like outside of school because I have a very great professor, Professor Linda Boyd. She is phenomenal. I've heard so many, it's so funny. I've heard so many good things about her from people who don't go to my school. And I'm like, "You know about her?" Like, I'm, like, shocked every time. She's like a celebrity to me. I love
I'm
her.
like,
She's
her name
great.
is on my textbook.
Exactly. When I
Yeah.
went to Middlesex for the first time and I saw her name on the textbook, I was like, I'm like, "Professor Boyd, how you have time for this?" She's just phenomenal, and everybody at that school, like, said such great things about her. I don't even know if they've ever met her, but they said such great things about her, and she's been holding my hand the whole way, and it's a very small class, like, there's, I think, 6 or 7 of us, so it's very small, very intimate, but I'm like, I don't know how she has time to hold my hand and make me feel supported 100% of the way. And then I'm sure she's doing it for every single student in my class. So I'm like, I don't know what research would look like without her. I don't know how that would go. So that's the only thing that I'm kind of like, "Ooh," like, I'm not sure. Like, she's been my support guide this whole time. So I don't know. I think about it though, because research is very important. Like you said, there's so much misinformation out there and things are only just going to keep changing. So we have to stay current on things. But I don't know, definitely a possibility.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you never know. Combining two things, I mean, two passions, it can absolutely happen. And if you're working in a teaching institution, sometimes you can still do research,
Yeah.
within the class or within the patients that you see or the patient
Mhm.
charts that you see. I know I was working at a small community college in Texas and they were starting to do research projects and things like that. And it was an associate's program, but she's like, I want to do this research. And so she got the ball rolling. So I just asked because I'm always like, I want to hear people's big dreams and ideas. And then I'm like, okay, let me remind you of that when the episode comes out. And push you forward to do something that maybe you were interested in. So, no, I think that's great. And I'm excited for your new career in education. And it sounds like you've gotten a really good foundation that's going to make your transition into
Yeah.
education a lot easier, which because it is education is not the same as working clinically, right? It's a lot different.
No. Oh, it's so different. In that you really I really got reminded of that when I went to Middlesex for that internship. Like, there were so many things. I know I wasn't there to learn as a student, but I would watch professors give lectures, and I'm like, "Right, I forgot about that." Like, it's been a couple of years since I'm out of hygiene school, but, like, I didn't use that in private practice or, like, "Oh, man, like, I didn't think about it this way." I picked up on so many different things. I almost felt like I was a student learning again for the first time or picked up things differently because now I had this information and maybe I needed that piece of information. So I really got a lot out of it.
Yeah, I know. I feel the same way. That's why I tell the students that I work with, I'm like, I study probably just as much as you because
Yeah.
when you're in
You never stop
education,
learning.
yeah, you have to keep learning. And like you said, things change. So we have to stay on the forefront of new education, new knowledge, new textbook
Hmm.
editions, all of that. Things definitely change over time.
Oh, yeah.
I love that. Well, let's say that a student's listening and is interested in this path, right? Kind of like a similar path that you've chosen. What kind of advice would you give to that student?
I know I said looking back, I would probably change things, but honestly, it's led me to the position that I'm in today, and I like where I'm at. So I wouldn't necessarily change anything. However, I think the biggest lesson that I've learned through hygiene school and grad school is that you're only going to get out what you put into something. So if you're putting in like 50%, you're only gonna get like 50% out. Like, you gotta make sure you're all in. And when you want something, like, you really have to go and get it. Like, I had a tough time in hygiene school, especially in the beginning, like, because my school was in Connecticut and I am from New Jersey. So I had to move out of state away from my family. And so that really was hard for me in the beginning, moving and then starting hygiene school, and my GPA experienced a lot of lows and highs as well. And, there was a point where I thought maybe I wasn't going to make it through the hygiene program. And when my GPA was at an all time low, I was kind of like, no, I'm like, I really want to be here every day. Like, I enjoy this. So if I want to be here, I have to act like I want to be here. I have to give it my all. So you really have to chase the things that you want because nobody's going to do it for you, but you really just have to give it your all if that's what you want. And if it's not, that's okay too. I feel like we are so pressured to do things and finish school with a degree we don't want. But if that's not for you, that's okay too. I feel like we think we might be a failure, but you're not. It's just a different path. You're not failing at all.
Yeah, 100%. And there's power in the pivot, right? I've had to pivot
Mhm.
several times in my life. And I think
Yeah.
at the time I felt those feelings of being a failure or things aren't going the way that I want. But, I'm like, but I have to keep pushing forward. And I love that you had that moment of almost like a come to Jesus moment. You're like,
Yeah.
this is on me. Right. And
Yeah.
it's kind of funny you mentioned that because I've been having some experiences lately where I feel like the students rely on me so much and they're like, what do I do? How do and I'm like, there's only so much I can do for you. And as an
Hmm.
educator, you're going to feel this one day where you're like, my gosh,
Yeah.
I would always tell my students, I will do my best to drag you across the finish line, but if you don't take the step over, I
Yeah.
can't get you there. And so there's something to be said about fostering an ability to be independent, how
Mhm.
to study on your own, how to come up with or to learn how you study best, right? The people who
Yeah.
do go on to thrive and survive in dental hygiene school, they really, I mean, I think take a good hard look at themselves and
Mhm.
it's almost like a science experiment, right? Like that didn't work. Okay, we're not going to do that again. This worked.
Yes.
So I really think that there's something to be said about going all in, like you said, and listening to yourself. And when you see something's not going right or the direction that you don't want, it's time to turn things around. So how did you go from, a low GPA? You're thinking, my gosh, am I even going to make it? How did you turn it around? Like any tips that you could recommend?
I really just, like you said, I took a good long look at myself and I was like, if this is where I want to be, nobody's going to get me there but me. So I have to do it myself. I have to give it my all. And after that, I did. I was getting straight A's. I made the dean's list. I don't know, being on the other side of education now, I kind of see the professors and what they think of some students, and I see the way they talk about students. And I am not sure what they said about me back then, but I wanted to prove whatever they were saying wrong. Like, I wanted to come out on top. And I did realize too, educators aren't there to be against you. Although sometimes in hygiene school, like, it may feel like it, but they're not. They're really there to help you and they're on your side. But like you said, you have to do the work too. Like, you can't rely on them for everything.
I think what a lot of students don't realize when you're in the student moment is the perspective of the educator. And that's something I sometimes try
Right.
and
Yeah.
sprinkle into my conversations, especially when I'm talking to educators, is, these people usually A lot of the dental hygiene educators I know, I mean, they are obsessed with dental hygiene. They love to teach and they want every student to succeed, but you get kind of beaten down sometimes by the students who don't
Yeah.
care or,
Yeah.
students giving you heck when you're like, I'm just trying to like elevate you to like, I want to see you rise to like the best of your ability. Or even just some of the struggles in working in an institution. There's red tape when you're working at a college.
Yeah.
You're like, I want to try this. And they're like, no, you can't. Or you're like, I want this for our clinic. And they're like, it's not in the budget. Those things can kind of wear you down over time. At the crux of it, all educators, they want to educate you, right? And
Hmm.
so it's way easier to educate someone who is receptive. And if you take a look
Yes.
around your classroom, and you see the students who are like engaged with the teacher, you're going to see they have good relationships with them. They're probably
Hmm.
succeeding because they engage. And there's really something to be said about engaging with people as a whole. So have you felt that, even in your kind of early experience, like through your internship?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I see the students who I'm like, and I think as a student, I think you're like, those students are like kiss asses, like they're best friends with the professor. And now it's like, no, they want to succeed.
Yeah.
Like they want to do the best they can.
Yeah, I know because I felt that as an educator. It's like I've had students ask me a question, and I'm like, you know what? I'd rather you ask all the questions because at
Yeah.
least you're learning. And then you have some
Right.
students that you're trying to show how to do something, and they'll just like it almost feels like they write you off. They're like, okay, and you're like,
Hmm. Oh,
okay, like
because they know it all.
yeah, you're like not one question, not even one. And I think everyone processes a little different. I don't hold it
Hmm.
against people how they learn or what they prefer,
Right.
but what I do see is those people, the other side of the coin, who are getting involved. It seems like everything happens a little bit quicker and faster for them.
Yeah.
So, not to say, anyone listening, you don't have to like be an extrovert if you're not an extrovert. You don't have to be something that
Yeah.
you're not. But I think that there is really something to be said about participation and engagement. And like you said, going all in on your future career. Like if this is really what you want to do, you need to do it at 100%. If you're
Mhm.
realizing it's not what you want to do, totally fine to pivot and make a change because I don't know, life's too short, right? To do something you
Yeah.
don't want to
You
do.
got to do what you're happy with.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about, navigating your master's program. My experience, and you can tell me if yours is the same. You sound like you have an amazing support, there in Professor
Hmm.
Boyd. But do you feel like compared to dental hygiene school, your undergrad, do you feel like this master's program is way more like independent, meaning you're kind of on your own for the most part?
You know what's funny is no. And I think I've taken that for granted actually. So when I was at Middlesex, I gave a lecture about advancing your degree because Middlesex has an articulation agreement with, is it the University of Bridgeport? Yes. So if the students from Middlesex wanted to go to the University of Bridgeport and get their bachelor's degree, they could. They get an automatic acceptance. So I gave a lecture about what are the benefits of this? Why would you do it? What are other career options besides clinical work? So I gave that lecture and I talked about my experience at the Massachusetts College of Pharmacy and Health Sciences. And I realized that because my school is all online except for that internship I did, but I realized that I don't feel like I'm alone. And because, like, the students in my little cohort, like the six, seven of us there is, we have a group text message. And anytime one of us needs help, we text each other. Like, we are all there for each other. Now, I'm not saying we're all like sitting there giving each other like answers to everything because our work is very independent. Like, we all do our own research, we do our own projects. But if one of us needs guidance on how to do something, like we're there for each other. And I talk to Professor Boyd one to multiple times a week. So I don't feel like I'm alone, but I know that other people now looking back can feel like they're alone. And I think it is still important to make connections and make a community, even if you are going to school online, because you need that support. Otherwise, you're not going to know what you're doing.
Yeah, I kind of had this similar, I don't know, eye-opening experience. I did mine online. I wasn't
Mhm.
in the city. Like I felt very remote and I did not make any connections through my master's program. I mean, I think at the time I had some like online like discussion board relationships, but and some people that
That's
we did.
required though.
I
That's like
know.
not fun.
Yeah, and we had, like a group project, but it was still all online, so everything was done via email. I mean, Zoom wasn't as big of a thing back then as it is now, but I really walked out of it with truthfully, I would say I did not network or make the connections that I could have while I was there. Something that is kind of unusual for me. I'm the type of person I am. Obviously I like to make connections and talk to people, but
Yeah.
I guess what
Yeah.
thinking through it, if you're in that situation, there are other students in the class, right? Usually,
Yeah.
but
And
I
they
know.
probably feel the same way you do.
Yes, yeah, and it's good to, at least like you said, have a text chain, "Hey, let's
Hmm.
go out, grab some dinner, talk about the program," have that shared experience because again, anytime you make one of those connections, it can go on to be a good thing in the long term and help get you through the program.
Yeah, and I think making connections while you're in school, whether it's graduate school or undergraduate school, I think it's super important because that's what we do in the field. We make connections with people to be able to educate them on their oral health. And if you're not connecting with your patients, I don't know what good you're really going to do for them. Like it's a very social field.
Yeah. No, that's true. I mean, and like, some people might be hearing this and thinking, well, I am an introvert. Can I be successful in the field of dental hygiene? And yes, you absolutely
Yes.
can be. You don't have to talk
Yeah.
to your patient through the entire appointment. And there are some
No.
introvert patients that are more than happy with an introvert, Our extroverted selves may kind of, be too much for some patients. I've had a patient tell me that. They were like, you are too much first thing in the morning. And I was like, well, that's just how I'm going to be because that's just who I am. And you be you, I'll be me, and it's all good. But no, I think that's a good point to make that really what we do is about building some type of connection. It could be a quiet connection, it could be a huge
Hmm.
connection, whatever that is. But whenever I was in my undergrad, I took this job strategies class that taught you how to write a resume and do all those things. One thing that she talked about was when you're asking for like a letter of reference or something like that, you have to make sure that you maintain that contact. You can't just reach out after a year of not talking to someone and then be like, hey, will you write me a letter of reference? Right. It's like, I don't even know you. It feels kind of like, why would I do that? Unless it's like a friend you've had for a long time or something, but
Hmm.
still. And that kind of made me think, with my master's program, I really did not keep in touch with anybody, my professors, anything. And like, what if there were to come a day where I wanted to teach there or I wanted to do this there? It's like
Yeah.
I really don't have any connections there anymore. So there's just something to be said about making those connections and trying to maintain some of them throughout the course of your life as well if you think it's something that you want to do moving forward. So yeah, kind of took a tangent on that one, but it's all relevant, good
It's a good
information.
one though. Yeah, because you're absolutely right. You never know who's gonna be able to help you, and if you're reaching out to somebody you haven't talked to in 30 years, that's kind of awkward, so you really do need to m maintain those connections. I didn't even think about it like that.
Yeah, I'm like, well, you're telling me how much you appreciate, Professor Boyd. And I'm like, I think that that's a connection that is important to maintain throughout time because,
Yeah.
thinking about where your future career is going to go, like she's a great resource for that. So, okay, I love that. So, I think I want to wrap up with the last question I usually ask, which is what has been your most favorite thing? It can be about dental hygiene school or your master's program. What's something that you've really enjoyed?
I just really enjoyed this whole experience, like hygiene school and graduate school. And I think it's because I like to learn. I feel like you never stop learning and you're never going to know it all. Things are always going to be changing and you have to keep up with it. Otherwise, you're going to be left in the dust. So I think I've just tried to make the most of it because I enjoy learning. And I'm not saying that you can't enjoy this field if you don't enjoy learning, but I really think it will help you and it will advance you. And it really, like we said, like it really does help me make connections with my patients too. Because there are a lot of people who ask me questions about like hot topics. So, for like example, I had somebody yesterday ask me about fluoride, and I was able to talk to them about like why some people don't like it and why some people do like it because I am trying to keep up on opinions and the literature. But I just think learning is such a strength and I really enjoy it. And I think because I enjoy it, I'm enjoying school and I'm enjoying my career.
I feel the exact same. I enjoy my career more and more as the years go on because I keep learning and investing in myself, as a
Yeah.
dental hygienist, but also at the same time, I invest in the career. Like you're going on to be an
Mhm.
educator, you're investing in the future of dental hygiene, right? And
Yeah.
I just think every time you step out there and you keep learning, you are contributing to the improvement of our profession
Mhm.
while also contributing to the improvement of yourself.
Yeah,
Better than that,
absolutely.
yeah, it helps to keep the fire alive, when
Yes.
because everything goes through highs and lows. I've been through highs and lows as a hygienist, but just taking time to continue to grow is great advice. Well, thank you, Megan, so much for being on the podcast today. We appreciate you and for coming on to share your story. I know that the students, especially those who are interested in education or continuing their education, will definitely be happy to listen to this episode. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.